Hello, I'm Simon. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing marvellously. Today I'm going to be making a present for my great niece out of this piece of mahogany. Now, this present will also be good for anyone who's a little sentimental. So let's get tinkering. This project is mainly based around the bandsaw. That said, I think I'm also going to use the router table and some sanding machines. What I'm making is based around a heart shape. So I've gone on the internet and found a heart, redimensioned it to the size that I want. And I'm just going to stick this onto the piece of mahogany. I'm using mahogany because I want this to be something that is kept, and therefore I want to make it out of something that's reasonably robust and have some longevity to it. I'm going to start by cutting off the bit of the wood that I don't need.
This bandsaw has so far dealt with everything I've thrown at it with ease. This mahogany is no exception. I've swapped out the 3/4 inch blade for a 1/4 inch one, and it's handling the curves nicely.
And this is far too thick for what I want, and I think I've decided that actually if I cut it in half it'll be about the right thickness and I'll be able to make two of them, so I'll have a template for another one. The bandsaw has cut this really nicely, so I'm just going to give it a bit of a sand.
I'm just tickling the workpiece with the sander. This is a great tool for the workshop. I'll leave a link to my review video in the description.
I can't get right in the corner with the oscillating spindle sander, so I'm going to do this last little bit by hand.
This is just the first 80 grit sanding. I'll do more later. My thinking is it's easier to sand it now than when I've finished the project, and I'll have quite a lot more to do. The first cut will become the base of a heart-shaped box and is about 4mm thick. That's about 3/16 of an inch. The second cut is a mistake. I'd intended to cut the top surface off for the lid, but cut the lid off of the bottom. This will impact the continuity of the grain a little bit, but the grain is quite straight, so I decide I can live with it.
I want to cut the middle out, and the way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to cut down here with the bandsaw into a hole that I'm going to drill here, which will then allow me to reorient the piece and go around this line, which I've hand drawn at an equal distance away from the edge on the inside. And that'll then give me a cavity.
The lid is about 10mm thick. That's about 3/8 of an inch.
I've cut this little shim. It's the same thickness as the cut. I'm just going to glue it in place, keep the shape of the heart.
The lid will be contoured with soft edges, so I use the spindle sander to rough out the shape I want. It will be finished by hand sanding.
So I've been sanding for a little while, just trying to get a more organic shape to it. A shape that has to feel right as well as look right. Still got a little bit more to do here. You can see that it's not quite smooth enough here. I'm only at the roughing out stage really, just getting the curves how I like them. I'll go on to finer and finer grits when I'm ready to polish, but for now I'm just going to flatten the cut back using this piece of 80 grit sandpaper. I've got the top how I like it. It's still only sanded to 80 grit, so still got a lot more sanding to do. This bottom piece is now sanded flat on both sides, again only at 80 grit. I now just want to take off this bottom corner so that it's nice to the touch basically.
I also need to sand the walls of the box. This is easier to do before it is glued to the base.
I've glued this and I'm not sure if these are cracks or if it's just the shadow of the ridge, because these aren't quite flush, they need sanding down. So I'm just going to try and fill, there's definitely a crack there, fill this with a little bit of sawdust. So I have filled it and it's done a really good job. I don't know if you can see that, you can't see the join at all. I have a video on the technique that I use for filling these thin small cracks and repairing smaller bits of chip out, which I'll leave a link to in the description. I'm really pleased with how that bottom is on there. It looks like one piece, which is really nice.
The lid will be held on the box with a couple of strong magnets, but I want these to be hidden, so I build a tiny heart-shaped box for them.
So I've just put a bit of scrap wood under here to create a zero clearance plate. I've just lifted this and squashed it on top. It's all a bit Heath Robinson, and I've glued this little tiny heart that I've made onto this stick, because I want to make a couple of veneers. Here are my two tiny heart-shaped veneers, and they are stuck together with these two magnets. This is just a test that the magnets have got enough strength with the veneers between them to hold the box lid on, and I think they probably have. I'm going to drill this hole larger than it needs to be, so I've got a bit of wiggle room, and I'm going to make it just as deep as it needs to be for this tiny magnet.
I regularly check the depth. I don't want to go any deeper than the thickness of the magnet. I'm using Yoo-hoo glue. It's a favourite of mine for gluing mixed materials, such as these rare earth magnets, to wood. I then glue the veneer in place using regular wood glue. This is far too much.
This is the most delicate part of the operation. I need to drill this just the right thickness. I don't have a lot of wiggle room. So this magnet I'm leaving loose, and I've just put some glue around the outside of the cover plate. I'm just going to line that up how I like it. I think it's there like that. This paint looks gorgeous. Look at that. Postbox red. I've stuck this little heart with the magnet in on a piece of wood just to make it easier to handle and to paint, so I can paint it all in one go. I think it'll need 2 or 3 coats. And it takes a few minutes to dry. It's water based. It's nice and easy to clean the brushes out with as well.
I now use a tack cloth to remove any fine sawdust before applying Danish oil. I'll apply 7 coats with a couple of hours between coats to get the finish I'm after. To glue the small heart in place, I apply wood glue and attach the small heart to the lid using its internal magnets. This way I know the heart will be placed correctly in the box. I then apply a small amount of gluing pressure using a couple of weights.
The glue should be dry now. Show you how strong the magnet is. Now I can oil the inside.
I don't do as many coats on the inside. And to get into the corners, I use a cotton earbud.
Well, I finished this project and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Hopefully it will be treasured and enjoyed for many years by my great niece. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for watching.